The city was silent, but not the silence of peace. It was the silence of hunger, of broken walls, and of people too weak to cry. The alien city once had tall towers that touched the clouds, markets full of colors and voices of life, now only ruins remained, smoke still rising from places where fire had eaten homes. Among the rubble walked a man, a human. His clothes were torn. His face was tired and his body weak. For days he had searched for food, moving from broken buildings to empty streets. In his hand, he held a small bag with only one piece of bread left inside. It was the last food he had, and his stomach cried for it. He stopped near a collapsed wall and sat down. His hands trembled as he opened the bag, looking at the bread. The world around him felt cold, his lips dry, his throat burning from thirst. He knew this small meal would not save him, but at least it would give him strength for one more day. He raised the bread close to his mouth. Then he heard it, a sound, soft, weak, and shaking, the sound of children crying. He turned his head slowly, and his eyes fell on a small group hiding under the broken stones. They were alien children, their skin glowing faintly under the dim light, their eyes wide with fear and hunger. Beside them lay an alien girl, older than the kids but still young, maybe just reaching adulthood. She held them close, trying to keep them warm, though her own body was thin and weak. The man froze, his stomach twisted. Hunger told him to eat, to live, but his heart beat faster when he saw the children, their tiny hands reaching out for nothing. Their lips cracked from thirst. They had nothing, not even hope. The alien girl noticed him, her eyes sharp, filled with both fear and anger. She thought the human would steal from them, or hurt them, but he only looked back at her, tired yet calm. Slowly, the man broke the bread in half. The girl's eyes widened, confusion flashing across her face. Without a word, he stepped closer and placed the pieces of bread in front of the children. At first, the kids hesitated, afraid it was a trick, but hunger was stronger than fear. One of them reached out, touched the bread, and quickly began eating. The others followed, tears falling as they shared the tiny pieces. The man watched quietly, his stomach burning in pain. He felt weaker as he gave away the only food he had left. Still, he did not move. He only smiled faintly as the children ate. The alien girl looked at him with shock. Why would a human, the enemy, the destroyer of her city, give food to her people's children? She could not understand. The children finished the bread quickly, their eyes brighter now, their bodies still weak but no longer shaking. The man sat back against the wall, his breath heavy, his hands were empty. His bag was empty, and his body screamed for food, but he closed his eyes, letting the hunger pass through him. The alien girl whispered to the kids in her own language, telling them to stay quiet, but her eyes never left the man above them. The ruins creaked, and the sound of footsteps echoed from the far street. The girl's ears twitched. She heard voices, angry voices, rough voices, raiders, scavengers who hunted the weak. They were coming closer, their boots hitting the stone, their laughter cruel. The alien girl's heart raced. She pulled the children tighter. The man opened his eyes, already knowing what the sound meant. He was weak, hungry, and had nothing left to fight with, but still. He stood up, his body shaking. The alien girl gasped softly, watching as the human placed himself in front of the broken wall, shielding the children. He had no weapon, no strength, yet he spread his arms wide. The footsteps grew louder, shadows moving closer through the dust. The raiders were near. The alien girl whispered to herself, her voice trembling. Why? Why would he protect us? Her people had always told her humans were selfish, cruel, only caring about their own survival. But here he was, standing between danger and children who were not even his own kind. The ruins fell silent again, only the sound of heavy boots echoing closer. The man's heart pounded, his stomach empty, his body weak. Yet his eyes held no fear, only determination. And in that moment, the alien girl felt something she never thought she would feel toward a human: respect. The shadows of the raiders appeared at the end of the street. The air grew tense. The children hid their faces in her arms. The man stood tall, his body ready to face them. The alien girl whispered one last word under her breath, a word she had never used for a human before. Leader, asterisk, the ruins echoed. With cruel laughter, the raiders stepped into the broken street, their faces hard, their eyes sharp with hunger and greed. They carried sticks, rusted knives, and one of them even had a cracked piece of metal shaped like a blade. They were not many, but enough to spread fear. They looked around, searching for anything they could take, food, water, or even the weak ones to sell as slaves. The human stood, still, his arms wide, his body shaking but his eyes steady. Behind him, the alien children hid, pressing against the stones, their small hands clinging to the alien girl's torn clothes. The raiders stopped when they saw him. One of them spat on the ground, grinning. A human? And protecting aliens? What a fool, he said. The man did not answer. He only took one step forward. His empty hands rose like a shield, as if his body alone could block their way. The raiders laughed again, but for a moment, their laughter carried unease. Why would a starving human protect children who were not his own kind? The alien girl's eyes followed every move, her breath quick and sharp. She had seen humans before, but never one like him. Most fought for themselves, stole or killed to survive. But this one gave away food, and now risked his life with nothing but his will. The raiders came closer, circling him. The leader of the raiders, a tall man with scars on his arms, pushed his blade forward. Move aside, human. These brats are worth more to us than your life. Still, the human did not move. His voice low but firm. You will not touch them. The alien girl's heart jumped at those words. She did not know why, but they struck her deeply. The man was weak. He had no food, no weapon, yet he spoke like a wall of stone. The raiders sneered, anger replacing their laughter. One of them rushed forward, swinging a stick. The human blocked it with his arm, the strike cutting into his skin. Blood dripping down. He did not fall. He stood tall again, his face calm even in pain. The alien children gasped, the girl's hands shaking as she pulled them tighter. The raider raised his stick again, ready to strike harder, but suddenly, another voice called out from the ruins. Enough! Everyone turned. From the shadows, other survivors appeared, both human and alien, drawn by the noise. They had been watching, silent, waiting to see what would happen. Now they saw the man bleeding, protecting children, refusing to move even. When outnumbered, whispers began to spread among them. He gave his last food to the kids, one said softly. He stands against raiders without fear, another whispered. Why? Why would he risk his life for them? The raiders noticed the growing crowd and grew uneasy. Their leader growled, swinging his blade closer to the man's chest. You cannot protect them forever, fool, he hissed. But the whispers grew stronger. The people watching felt something they had not felt in a long time. Hope. The human's courage lit a spark inside their broken hearts. The alien girl stood slowly, her legs shaking but her eyes fierce. She stepped forward, her voice clear. He is not a fool, she said, her alien words sharp and strong. He gave us food when he had none. He bleeds to keep us safe. He is more leader than you will ever be. The raiders froze for a moment, confused. The girl's voice carried power, and the people watching began to nod, their whispers turning into quiet agreement. The raiders saw the eyes around them, eyes no longer filled only with fear, but with strength. Fear of the raiders was fading, replaced by belief in the human. The raider leader cursed, pulling his men back. Not worth the fight today, he muttered, spitting on the ground. They stepped away, their laughter fading as they disappeared into the smoke of the ruins. The danger passed, but the silence that followed was heavy. The human dropped to his knees, his body weak, blood running from his arm. He tried to hide the pain, but his face was pale. The alien girl rushed forward, her hands trembling as she tore a piece of her cloth and wrapped it around his wound. "You are foolish," she whispered, but her voice was soft, not angry. He looked at her, his lips faintly smiling. "They are children. Children must live," he said weakly. Her chest tightened at his words. She had lost her own parents in the war. She had seen humans as monsters. But this man was different. This man had no food, no strength, no reason to care for her people, yet he gave everything, for the first time. She wondered if her people had been wrong about all humans. The crowd around them began to move closer, humans and aliens together, looking at the man with new eyes. Whispers filled the air again, but they were no longer whispers of fear. They were whispers of respect. Some called him brave, some called him kind. Others called him a fool with too much heart. But one word began to spread quietly, carried from lip to lip: leader. The alien girl looked at him, still holding his arm. Her eyes were no longer filled with anger or doubt. They were filled with something new, trust, and as the ruined city slept under the fading light, a story had begun, a story of sacrifice, whispered in the dark, a story of a human who gave hope to both enemies and friends alike. The night fell heavy over the ruins. Fires burned low in broken corners of the city, and smoke mixed with the cold air. The survivors, both human and alien, sat in silence, each lost in their own hunger and fear, but the whispers of the day still lingered in the air. They spoke of the human who had given away his food and stood against raiders with nothing but his body. The man sat alone near the broken wall, his arm still bleeding beneath the cloth the alien girl had tied. His stomach twisted in pain, but his heart was calm. He looked at the sky through the gaps in the ruins, searching for stars, but smoke covered them. He closed his eyes, resting, though sleep would not come. The alien girl watched him from a distance. She held the children close, but her eyes kept moving back to the man. Her thoughts battled inside her. Humans had destroyed her city, taken lives, broken families. She had hated them, sworn never to trust. Yet this one human gave everything for children who were not his. Why? What made him so different? Finally, when the children slept, she stood and walked toward him. Her steps were quiet, cautious, as if she feared what her own people would think. She stopped a few steps away and whispered, "Why did you do it?" The man opened his eyes slowly, looking at her. "Do what?" he asked, his voice weak but steady. She frowned, her arms crossed tightly. "You gave away your last food. You bled for children that are not yours, children that are not even human." He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "They are children. Hunger does not care if you are human or alien." His words were simple, but they carried weight. The girl's chest tightened, her anger softening into something she did not understand. "You could have died," she whispered again. Almost accusing, the man gave a small smile, tired but warm. "Better me than them," he said. The words struck her like a blade, not of pain but of truth. She turned her face away, not wanting him to see her eyes. Behind them, the survivors whispered again. Some aliens looked at the man with doubt, wondering if his kindness was a trick. Others felt hope stirring for the first time since the war. Among the humans, too, whispers spread. One survivor, a strong man with sharp eyes, shook his head. "Fool," he muttered, "giving food to aliens when we starve as well." His voice carried anger, and others nodded in agreement. Division was growing. Some humans saw him as a traitor, while others began to wonder if his way was right. The alien girl noticed this, her heart torn. She wanted to trust him, yet she feared what her people and his would do. If they turned against him, he would be crushed. But if he continued, maybe something new could rise from the ashes the next morning. The survivors gathered to search the ruins. The human walked slowly, his arm aching, his body weak from hunger. The alien girl followed, her eyes never far from him. When they found a broken crate with a few dry roots and old cans, he handed them to the weakest children first. He took nothing for himself. Again, the humans grumbled, some angry, some silent. One spat at his feet. "Always feeding them first," the man sneered. "What about your own kind?" The human leader looked at him calmly and said, "They are my kind. They are alive." The alien girl's heart raced at those words. It was dangerous. He was making enemies among his own people. Yet he did not stop later. As the sun set, the alien girl finally sat beside him. Her voice was softer now, less guarded. "My people will not trust you easily," she said. He nodded. "Nor will mine." "Then why do you keep trying?" she asked. He looked at her with tired but determined eyes. "Because hate already burned this city once. If we keep it, nothing will survive." The girl was silent for a long time. Her hands tightened around her knees, her mind fighting her old beliefs. But the more she looked at him, the more she saw not an enemy, but something else, a protector, a leader, perhaps even a bridge between two broken worlds. As the night grew colder, a sound carried through the ruins, the low howl of wind, mixed with distant shouts. The raiders had returned, stronger, their voices cruel and eager. Fear spread quickly among the survivors. Children crying, adults panicking. The alien girl's eyes widened in terror. She looked at the human, expecting fear, but his face was calm, his body straight, his eyes burning with determination. He picked up a broken piece of wood, sharp at one end. His arm shook, his body weak, but his spirit was firm. He turned to the survivors, his voice louder than before. "They are coming again, but we are not helpless," he said. Some humans scoffed, some aliens whispered, but his voice carried strength. "They will take everything unless we stand together," he continued. "No more humans, no more aliens, only survivors, and we will survive if we fight as one." The alien girl felt her chest rise with heat, his words striking her deeper than any weapon. She looked at the children, their frightened eyes looking to her. And for the first time, she believed. This man was not just protecting them. He was leading them, even if they did not all see it yet. The raiders' footsteps grew louder, shadows moving closer. The alien girl whispered under her breath, "If you stand, I will stand with you." The man looked at her, a faint smile on his lips. "Then we are not alone," he said, and as the night filled with danger, something greater than fear was born in the ashes. Trust, fragile yet powerful. Trust that could change everything. The night was sharp with fear. The ruins echoed with the sound of boots, the cruel laughter of raiders growing louder. Shadows moved like wolves in the broken streets, closing in on the survivors. Children cried. Women whispered prayers. Men clenched their fists, though they had no weapons. The human stood at the front, his broken piece of wood gripped tight in his hand. His arm still hurt from the wound. His stomach burned with hunger, but his eyes did not bend. Beside him stood the alien girl, her body shaking, but her eyes fierce. Around them, the survivors gathered, unsure if they should fight or run. The raiders appeared from the smoke. Their leader laughed, waving his rusted blade in the air. "So the fool still stands," he sneered. Behind him, more raiders carried torches, lighting the ruins with fire. They were more this time. Stronger, hungry for blood. The man raised his voice, steady and firm. "They want to take everything, but if we stand together, they will fail." His words carried through the ruins. Some humans nodded, some aliens trembled. The girl stepped forward, her voice clear. "He gave his food to our children. He bled for us if he stands. I will stand with him." The crowd stirred, whispers becoming louder. The raiders grew impatient, rushing forward with cruel shouts. The man tightened his grip on the wooden shard, his body ready though weak. The first raider swung a stick at him. The man blocked it clumsily, the force throwing him back, but he did not fall. He struck back, pushing the raider to the ground. The battle began. The raiders rushed in, their torches throwing wild shadows on the walls. The survivors panicked. Some tried to flee, others froze in fear. But the man fought with everything he had, striking with his wooden shard. Every move cost him strength. Every breath burned in his chest. But he refused to give in. The alien girl screamed, pulling a stone from the ground and throwing it at a raider's head. The man glanced at her, surprise and pride mixing in his eyes. She was fighting beside him, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. The raiders roared, swinging blades and sticks. The man's arm was cut again, blood running down. He stumbled, almost falling, but the alien girl caught him, her hands firm. "Stand, leader." She shouted, her voice echoing through the ruins. The survivors heard her cry. Something sparked inside them. One by one, they began to rise. A human grabbed a broken pipe, another lifted a heavy rock. An alien woman threw burning debris, another slashed with sharp glass. The survivors fought, side by side, fear turning into fire. The raiders had numbers, but not unity. The survivors fought with desperation, with something greater than hunger, hope. The man struck again, his body weak but his spirit unbroken. Each time he fell, someone pulled him back up. Each time he bled, the alien girl stood closer, covering his side. The raider leader growled, pushing forward. His rusted blade flashing, he swung hard, the man barely blocking, his wooden shard breaking in two. The leader sneered, raising his weapon for the final strike, but before it fell, the alien girl leapt forward, striking his arm with a stone. The blade dropped, clattering against the rubble. The man grabbed it, twisting it away, and with a burst of strength, he forced the leader to the ground. The raiders froze, their eyes wide. Their leader lay on the dirt, defeated by the very man they had mocked. The survivors cheered, their voices echoing through the ruins. The raiders, seeing their strength broken, fled into the shadows, leaving their leader behind. Silence returned, heavy but alive. The man dropped the blade, his chest heaving, his body ready to collapse. The alien girl stood beside him, holding his arm as if to keep him upright. "You fought when you had nothing," she whispered, her voice soft but strong. "You bled for us again. You are no fool. You are our leader." The survivors gathered around, their faces glowing in the firelight. Humans and aliens stood together, no longer only whispering the word. They spoke it loudly now, their voices united. "Leader! Leader!" The man looked at them, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. He wanted to deny it, to say he was just a man trying to keep children alive. But the fire in their voices, the hope in their eyes, told him the truth. They needed him, not as a fighter, not as a hero, but as something greater, a guide, a leader. The alien girl tightened her grip on his arm. She looked at him with trust burning bright. "You gave us food, you gave us courage, now you gave us victory," she said. "Without you, we would have fallen. With you, we will rise." The man looked at the broken city, smoke curling into the night sky. He had no crown, no throne, no riches, only scars, hunger, and tired eyes. But in the ashes of war, he had gained something far greater, the loyalty of two peoples who had once been enemies. And as the survivors cheered, the alien girl stood tall. Beside him, in her eyes, he was no longer just a human. He was the leader who had changed everything. The fire from the battle still glowed in the ruins. Smoke rose into the night, carrying the smell of blood and ash. The raiders had been driven away, their leader defeated, their strength broken. For the first time in many days, the survivors felt victory. They gathered around the human, their voices rising, calling him leader. But victory did not end hunger. It did not erase old wounds. And in the shadows of the ruins, doubt began to grow. The human sat near the broken wall, his body trembling from pain. The alien girl knelt beside him, wrapping his wounds again with torn cloth. Her hands were steady, her eyes focused. She no longer looked at him as an enemy, but as something more. The children he had fed watched him with shining eyes, as if he were a hero from an old story. Yet not everyone shared their trust. Among the humans, whispers turned to sharp words. "He gives food to aliens while our own stomachs cry," one man growled. "Whose side is he? On? Ours or theirs?" Others nodded, anger rising. They saw him not as a leader, but as a traitor who cared more for aliens than his own people. The aliens too had their doubts. Some looked at him with respect, remembering how he bled to protect. They're children, but others shook their heads. He is still human, one elder hissed. His kind destroyed our city. Why should we follow him now? The past weighed heavy on their hearts, and trust was not easy. The divide was clear. Two groups stood on either side of the ruins, human against alien, and in the middle stood the man. Tired, hungry, but unshaken, the alien girl noticed the rising anger. She stepped forward, her voice sharp. Without him, the raiders would have taken us all, she said. But her words only fueled the fire. A human man shouted back. And without us, he is nothing. He bleeds for your people, not ours. The air grew tense, fists clenched, eyes burned with old hatred. It seemed the survivors might turn on each other, even after fighting side by side. The human slowly stood, his wounds aching, his breath heavy. He raised his hands, his voice calm but firm. Enough. All eyes turned to him. He looked at the humans first. Yes, I gave food to the alien children, he said, his voice steady. Because hunger does not ask who you are before it kills you. He turned to the aliens. Yes, I fought the raiders, but not only for your children, for all of us. The crowd murmured, their anger pressing against his words. The man's eyes softened, his voice lower now but filled with truth. I am not leader because I am strong. I am not leader because I am clever, he said. I am leader only because I gave what little I had, and I will give again, even if it costs me my life. With that, he took the small share of food they had found that day, a few roots and a broken can of beans. Without hesitation, he handed it to the weakest. Both human and alien children. The crowd gasped, his stomach growled, his body needed food, but again he chose sacrifice. The alien girl's eyes burned with emotion, her throat tight. He had nothing left, yet he gave more. The humans muttered, fool, some said, but others looked ashamed, their anger softening. The aliens whispered too, some still doubting, but others bowing their heads in respect. The alien girl stepped forward, standing beside him. Her voice rose above the crowd. You call him a fool, but he does what no one else dares, she said. He gave us food when he had none. He gave us courage when we had none, and now he gives us hope. The crowd fell silent, their anger breaking into uneasy quiet. The human looked at her, his face pale, his body weak, but in his eyes there was no regret, only determination. That night, the survivors sat apart, the divide still there. Humans on one side, aliens on the other, but in the center, near the broken wall. The humans sat with the children, both alien and human. They huddled together, their small hands holding his. To them, there was no divide, only the one who had kept them alive, the alien girl. Sat close too, watching him with silent respect. Her heart warred with fear and hope. She knew trust was fragile, that hate could rise again. But she also knew that something had changed. Something no hatred could erase. In the silence of the ruins, the first sparks of unity flickered, small, fragile, but alive, and in the shadows, unseen eyes watched, raiders, waiting, planning. The true trial of leadership had only begun. The ruins slept uneasily. The night air carried the smell of smoke and blood, but also the sound of whispers. Humans whispered against aliens. Aliens whispered against humans. Though they had fought side by side, the wound of mistrust had not healed. The human sat near the center, his eyes heavy, his stomach empty. The alien girl sat close by, her eyes watching him carefully. She could see the weakness in his body, the pale color of his face. Yet she also saw the fire still alive in his eyes. He had given everything, yet he still stood. The children, both alien and human, huddled near him. They trusted him without question. For them, he was not alien or human. He was the one who gave food when he had none, the one who stood against raiders with only his hands. But trust among adults was harder. The divide lingered, sharp and dangerous, and while they argued in whispers, danger moved closer. Far beyond the ruins, the raiders gathered again, not broken, not beaten, but burning with revenge. This time they came with more numbers. This time they carried stronger weapons. And this time they wanted not only food, blood. At dawn, the survivors heard the sound, drums on metal, shouts echoing across the ruined streets. Fear spread quickly. The survivors froze, their eyes wide. "They are coming back," someone whispered. The human stood slowly, his body shaking. The alien girl rose beside him, her hands trembling but firm. The survivors gathered, their voices full of panic. "We cannot fight them again," a man shouted. "They are too many," another cried. "Better to run," someone else said. The human raised his voice, calm but strong. "If we run, they will hunt us," he said. "If we fight apart, they will break us." His eyes swept over the crowd. "Only together we can stand. Only together we can survive." Some turned away, their faces cold, but others listened, torn between fear and hope. The alien girl stepped forward, her voice clear and sharp. "You doubt him because he is human," she said to her people. "But when your children cried, who fed them? You doubt him because he is weak," she said to the humans. "But when raiders attacked, who stood in front while you hid?" Her words cut through the crowd. The survivors looked at the man, his body wounded, his hands empty, yet he stood like a wall of stone. He had no crown, no throne, no army, but he had something greater, sacrifice. The raiders' shouts grew louder, their torches lighting the streets. The survivors' fear grew heavy, but the man raised his broken weapon, his voice carrying through the ruins. "They will burn us if we break, but they will fear us if we stand. I ask nothing but this. Fight not as human or alien, but as one." Silence followed. Then a voice rose from the humans. "I will fight," a woman said, lifting a pipe. Another voice rose from the aliens. "We will not run." An elder whispered. One by one, survivors stepped forward, rocks, pipes, broken glass, anything they could hold in their hands. For the first time, they stood side by side. The raiders stormed into the ruins, their torches wild, their blades sharp. But what they found was not a broken camp. It was a wall of survivors, human and alien together. The man stood in front, the alien girl beside him. The air filled with the roar of battle. The raiders charged, their blades cutting, their shouts fierce. The survivors fought back, throwing stones, striking with pipes. The human swung his weapon, blocking, striking, falling and rising again. The alien girl fought beside him, her voice crying out, rallying her people. "Stand! For the children, for life!" She shouted. The battle was chaos, screams and fire mixing in night. But the survivors did not break. Every time a raider struck, a human or alien struck back. Every time someone fell, another pulled them up. It was no longer about humans or aliens. It was about survival, about loyalty. The raider leader pushed forward again, his blade sharper, his eyes full of rage. He clashed with the human, the force of his strikes almost breaking him. The man staggered, blood on his lips. But the alien girl rushed to his side, striking the leader's arm. Together, they forced him back. The raiders, seeing their leader wounded again, began to falter. The survivors shouted louder, their unity burning stronger. Fear turned to fire. Weakness turned to strength. The raiders broke, fleeing into the darkness, their torches falling behind. The ruins grew silent, the firelight flickering on broken walls. The survivors stood together, their chests rising and falling, their hands shaking but strong. They had not run, they had not broken. For the first time they had fought as one. The alien girl turned to the human, her eyes shining though tears fell. "You gave us food, you gave us courage, now you gave us victory again," she whispered. "You asked for nothing, yet gave everything." The survivors gathered, their voices rising. "Leader! Leader!" They shouted, but this time the word was not divided. It came from both human and alien lips. The man, weak and bleeding, looked at them. He wanted to say he was no leader, only a man who refused to let children starve. But the fire in their eyes told him the truth. He was more than himself now. He was the bond that tied them together, the first spark of loyalty that might heal a broken world. The ruins were quiet after the battle. Smoke drifted across the broken streets, carrying the smell of fire and sweat. Bodies of fallen raiders lay scattered in the dust, their weapons left behind. But among the survivors, there was no sound of mourning this time. There was only silence filled with wonder. They had won. The survivors gathered slowly, humans and aliens together, their faces dirty, their hands shaking, their bodies bruised, yet their eyes shone with something new. Not fear, not hatred, but respect. At the center stood the human, his chest rising and falling, his arms bleeding. His body looked broken, but his spirit stood taller than any tower that once filled the alien city. Beside him stood the alien girl, her clothes torn, her hands stained with dirt and blood, but her eyes were clear, sharp, and full of fire. She looked at him not as an enemy, not even as an ally, but as something far greater. The children rushed forward, both alien and human. They clung to him, their small hands gripping his torn clothes. To them, he was not just a man, he was hope. He had given them food. He had shielded them. He had stood when all others wanted to run. The crowd began to murmur, at first soft, then louder. They spoke one word again and again: leader. Leader. This time, there was no doubt, no division. The word carried across both sides, uniting them. The human raised his hand weakly, asking for silence. His voice was tired, but it carried across the ruins like thunder. I am no king. He said, I have no crown, no throne, no riches to give. He looked at them all, human and alien together. I only gave what little I had, because no child should starve, no family should live in fear. His words struck deep. Men and women lowered their eyes in shame, remembering how they had doubted him. Aliens bowed their heads, their old hatred softening into respect. The alien girl's heart swelled with emotion, her throat tight with unspoken words. The man took a slow breath, his voice steady though his body trembled. If you call me leader, then hear me now. There will be no more humans and aliens, only survivors. No more old hate, no more broken divide, only one people who rise together. The survivors listened, their hearts heavy but ready. They had seen his sacrifice. They had seen his courage. Now they felt his truth. The alien girl stepped forward, her voice rising with his. You all saw it, she said, her eyes sweeping the crowd. He gave his food to our children when he had none. He bled for us. He fought for us. Again and again. Her voice broke. But she did not stop. He gave more than food, more than courage. He gave us a future. Tears burned her eyes as she dropped to one knee before him. Her head bowed, her voice steady. You are our true leader. The crowd gasped. And then, slowly, others followed. Humans knelt, aliens knelt, one after another, until the ruins were filled with bowed heads, all facing the man who had no crown. No throne, only scars and sacrifice. The human's throat tightened, his heart heavy with the weight of their trust. He had never wanted power, never wanted to lead, but he saw their eyes, their hope, their faith, and he knew he could not walk away. He lowered himself too, sitting on the broken stone, not as a king above them, but as one of them. If I lead, then I lead with you. Not above you, he said. Together we will rebuild. Together we will live. Together we will rise from these ashes. The survivors lifted their heads, their eyes bright. For the first time since the war, they felt unity. For the first time, they believed tomorrow could be different. The alien girl stood again, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder, her voice softer now, meant only for him. You gave everything for us, and still you give more, she whispered. He looked at her, his tired smile faint but real. I gave only what I could, he answered. She shook her head, her eyes glistening. No. You gave us hope, and that is greater than any meal, greater than any weapon. The night grew quiet, but not empty. The ruins that once held only hunger and despair now held the first breath of a new beginning. Around the fires, humans and aliens sat together for the first time. They shared food, little though it was. They shared stories, and they shared laughter. The children played among the rubble, their voices rising like music, and at the heart of it all sat the human and the alien. Girl. Side by side, no longer strangers, no longer enemies, he was their leader. Not by power, not by blood, but by sacrifice. A leader who gave his last meal for children who were not his own. A leader who turned enemies into family. The ruins still lay broken, the world still heavy with scars. But from the ashes, something new had risen. Not walls, not towers, not